Brooklyn and the other four girls arrived at the university in the same academic session, though they came from different parts of the country. None of them imagined that a chance meeting during orientation week would become the beginning of a friendship that people on campus would admire for years. Brooklyn was the first to arrive at the lecture hall that morning for the orientation meant for first students. She sat quietly near the window, reading the orientation booklet while waiting for the program to begin. A cheerful young woman carrying far too many books stumbled over a loose tile and almost fell. "Oh," she exclaimed. Brooklyn jumped up and caught the books before they scattered across the floor. "Thank you," the young woman said with a laugh. "I can already tell this university wants to embarrass me." Brooklyn smiled. "I'm Brooklyn Salami. I'm Isabella Oko." Within minutes they were chatting like old friends. Later that day, they met Mia Olamide, a calm and compassionate nursing student, Chloe Lucas, whose sharp mathematical mind was matched only by her quick wit, and Amelia Okafor, a brilliant computer engineering student who loved solving problems. The five women spent the rest of orientation together. By the end of the week, everyone on campus knew them. "There go the five queens," some students joked whenever they walked past. The nickname stayed. University life was not always easy. There were semesters when money was scarce. Days when lecturers announced surprise tests. Nights when electricity disappeared just before examinations. Yet through every challenge, the five remained together. When Brooklyn's scholarship payment was delayed, the others contributed money for her feeding. When Amelia's laptop stopped working before a major project, Brooklyn borrowed one from a senior student. When Isabella suffered malaria during examinations, the others took turns sitting beside her hospital bed, reading lecture notes aloud until she recovered. Friendship seemed effortless. Birthdays became celebrations. Examinations became group study sessions. Weekends became movie nights, long conversations, and endless laughter. Sometimes they prayed together before examinations, though none of them truly knew God personally. Their prayers were mostly requests for good grades. Their faith went no deeper than tradition. Still, life seemed beautiful. Each woman dreamed of a successful future. Brooklyn loved languages. She spoke English, French, and conversational Italian with remarkable fluency. She had an unusual gift for learning new languages, and lecturers often predicted she would someday work with international organizations. Isabella dreamed of becoming a famous television presenter. She possessed confidence, elegance, and a beautiful speaking voice. Whenever class presentations were assigned, everyone expected Isabella to impress. She usually did. Mia wanted to save lives. Chloe dreamed of becoming a university lecturer. Amelia hoped to establish one of Nigeria's biggest technology companies. They often stayed awake until midnight discussing their future. 10 years from now, Amelia would say, we'll all own houses. And expensive cars, Isabella would add. And we'll still be friends, Mia would say. Brooklyn would smile. Promise? Promise. They all stretched out their hands. Forever. 5 hands met in the middle. Forever. At least that was what they believed. After graduation, life pulled them in different directions. Brooklyn relocated to Abuja after accepting a position as a multilingual communications consultant. Isabella also found work there with a media company. The others settled in different cities, though they remained connected through frequent calls and their lively group chats. Distance did not weaken their friendship. If anything, it seemed to strengthen it. Whenever one succeeded, everyone celebrated. When Mia completed her professional nursing certification, gifts poured in from the group. When Amelia launched her software startup, Brooklyn became one of her first clients. Birthdays were never forgotten. Neither were anniversaries. To outsiders, they represented everything true friendship should be. But hidden beneath smiles, something had quietly begun changing. Brooklyn's career advanced faster than anyone expected. Her ability to communicate with international clients attracted the attention of major companies. Within 3 years, she was earning more than she had ever imagined. Yet success never changed her personality. She still answered her friends' late-night calls. She still visited orphanages during Christmas. She still sent anonymous financial assistance to struggling classmates whenever she heard someone needed help. People trusted her. People liked her. Doors opened wherever she went. Sometimes even Brooklyn wondered why opportunities seemed to find her. She simply thanked God, though she still knew very little about him. One afternoon she attended a business networking conference in Abuja. Representatives from several international companies were present. During one discussion, a businessman struggled to communicate with visiting European investors. Brooklyn politely offered assistance. Within minutes she had translated an entire conversation with effortless confidence. Across the room, one man watched her with admiration. His name was Dylan Okeke. He was a wealthy entrepreneur whose company specialized in importation and logistics. When the meeting ended, he approached her. "I've never seen anyone switch between languages that naturally." Brooklyn laughed. "I've been practicing for years." "I hope this isn't too forward," Dylan said, "but would you consider consulting for my company occasionally?" She accepted. Their professional relationship began the following week. Business meetings soon turned into coffee after work. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became long conversations about family, ambition, and dreams. For the first time in years, Brooklyn met a man who genuinely listened whenever she spoke. He respected her opinions, encouraged her career, celebrated her achievements instead of feeling threatened by them. 6 months later, he invited her to a quiet garden restaurant. After dinner, he led her outside. Soft lights hung from the trees. A violinist played nearby. Brooklyn looked around in surprise. "What is all this?" Instead of answering, Dylan knelt on one knee. He opened a small velvet box. Inside rested a sparkling engagement ring. "Brooklyn," he said softly, "every day with you convinces me that I don't want to spend another day without you. Will you marry me?" Tears immediately filled her eyes. She covered her mouth. For several seconds she could not speak. Finally she whispered, "Yes." The restaurant erupted in applause. Complete strangers celebrated with them. Brooklyn laughed and cried at the same time as Dylan gently placed the ring on her finger. That evening she sent a photograph to the group chat. He asked. And I said yes. Within seconds, congratulations flooded her phone. Mia sent dozens of heart emojis. Amelia immediately volunteered to help organize the wedding. Chloe promised to handle every calculation and budget. Isabella replied with the longest message of all. "My sister, I'm so happy for you. This is only the beginning of greater things. I can't wait to stand beside you on your big day." Brooklyn smiled as she read it. She had no reason to doubt a single word. She didn't know that Isabella stared at the engagement photo for nearly an hour after everyone else had gone to bed. She zoomed in on the expensive ring. She read every congratulatory comment. She imagined Brooklyn in a beautiful white wedding dress. She imagined the luxurious reception. She imagined the admiration Brooklyn would receive. Something painful tightened inside her chest. She threw her phone onto the bed. "What does she have that I don't?" she whispered into the darkness. No one answered. But the question refused to leave her heart. By morning, admiration had become comparison. Comparison became resentment. And resentment quietly planted the first seed of a decision that would soon change all of their lives forever. The months leading to Brooklyn's wedding were filled with excitement. Every weekend brought another item to check off the wedding list. There were bridal gown fittings, menu tastings, meetings with decorators, photography consultations, and endless discussions about colors and flower arrangements. Brooklyn wanted everything to be elegant but simple. "I don't want people talking about how expensive the wedding was," she often said. "I want them talking about how beautiful the marriage becomes." Her words always made Dylan smile. "I knew I was marrying the right woman." The wedding date was fixed for the second Saturday of July. Invitations had already been printed. Hotel reservations had been made for guests traveling from different states. The church choir had begun rehearsals. Everything was falling perfectly into place. Or so everyone believed. Among Brooklyn's 4 closest friends, Isabella appeared to be the happiest. She attended every bridal meeting. She accompanied Brooklyn to almost every shopping trip. She even volunteered to coordinate the bridesmaids. Whenever anyone praised Brooklyn's relationship, Isabella would clap enthusiastically. "My sister deserves every happiness," she would say. Brooklyn never doubted her sincerity. How could she? They had shared too many memories together. Too many tears. Too many victories. Surely a friendship built over years could never hide betrayal. Yet every smile Isabella gave required increasing effort. At night, after returning home, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. Questions tormented her. Why Brooklyn? Why not me? She had dreamed of getting married first. She had imagined herself wearing the white dress. Instead, one relationship after another had ended in disappointment. Meanwhile, Brooklyn seemed to succeed at everything. A better career. A better salary. A better fiancé. The jealousy that had begun as a tiny seed was now growing into something poisonous. Instead of celebrating her friend's blessing, Isabella measured it against her own disappointments. Comparison slowly destroyed contentment. One evening, while helping Brooklyn arrange invitation cards, Brooklyn smiled. "I've been praying that all 5 of us will eventually marry wonderful men." Isabella forced a smile. "Amen." But inside she thought, "If I cannot have this happiness, why should you?" The thought frightened even her. She tried to push it away. For several days she avoided Brooklyn's calls. She told herself she was simply stressed. But bitterness, once entertained, rarely leaves on its own. It demands company. It demands action. Finally, one Friday evening, Isabella made a decision she never imagined she would make. She boarded a bus to her hometown in Edo State. She told everyone she was attending a family ceremony. It was a lie. The real destination lay deep inside a remote village where an elderly spiritualist was said to solve impossible problems. The villagers spoke of him in whispers. Some claimed politicians secretly visited him. Others said wealthy businessmen sought his assistance before major contracts. No one knew how much was true. But everyone feared him. When Isabella finally reached his compound, she almost turned back. The place was strangely quiet. Old trees surrounded the mud house. Charms hung from wooden poles. The air felt heavy. An old man emerged slowly from inside. His hair was completely white. His eyes were sharp despite his age. Without greeting her, he said, "You have traveled far." "Yes. You have come because your heart is troubled." She nodded. He invited her inside. The room contained almost nothing except a wooden chair, a mat, and several clay pots arranged neatly against one wall. After listening patiently to her story, the old man asked quietly, "What exactly has this woman done to you?" "Nothing." His eyebrows rose. "She stole your husband?" "No." "She cheated you?" "No." "She owes you money?" "No." The old man became silent. Then why do you want to destroy her wedding? Isabella looked down. I just don't want the marriage to hold. The old man studied her for a long time. Then he sighed deeply. Jealousy is one of the most expensive spirits to serve. I don't care. You will. I said I don't care. You will pay more than money. I'll pay. Again the old man remained silent. Finally he spoke. For 7 days you will come here. She nodded confidently. For 7 days you will drink whatever I give you. Her confidence weakened. What is it? My urine. The words echoed inside the small room. Isabella stared at him in disbelief. Surely she had misunderstood. What? Yes, I will urinate into your mouth. She stood immediately. There must be another way. There is. What? Go home. She hesitated. The old man continued. You are free to leave. Your friend has done you no wrong. For a brief moment, Isabella almost walked away. She remembered Brooklyn sharing food with her in school. She remembered Brooklyn paying part of her hospital bills during their final year. She remembered years of genuine friendship. Her conscience screamed at her to leave. But jealousy shouted louder. She slowly sat down again. I'll do it. The old man looked disappointed. So be it. The ritual began the following morning. Each day Isabella arrived before sunrise. Each day she forced herself to swallow the humiliating payment. Each day she repeated strange instructions given by the old man. Every visit left her feeling emptier. But instead of stopping, she became more determined. Hatred had blinded her. By the 7th day, the old man handed her a small wrapped object. Keep this near you until the wedding day. Will it work? It has been done. The wedding will not hold. He nodded slowly. The wedding will not hold. Satisfied, Isabella returned to Abuja. Nobody suspected anything. She hugged Brooklyn warmly. Apologized for missing several planning meetings. Bought an expensive bridal gift. Joined the final rehearsals. She laughed. She danced. She prayed publicly for the success of the wedding. Everyone admired her loyalty. Only God saw the darkness hidden beneath her smile. Then, 24 hours before the ceremony, everything changed. Brooklyn's phone rang. The caller was Dylan. She answered cheerfully. My husband-to-be. His voice sounded strangely distant. Brooklyn, can we talk? She laughed. Tomorrow we'll have the rest of our lives to talk. This can't wait. Something inside her tightened. What's wrong? There was a long silence. Finally he spoke. I can't explain it. Her smile disappeared. What do you mean? I don't think we should get married. Brooklyn's knees became weak. She slowly sat down. What are you saying? I don't know why. I just know I shouldn't go through with it. Did I offend you? No. Is there another woman? No. Then what happened? I honestly don't know. His voice trembled. I've tried to fight this feeling all week, but it keeps growing stronger. Brooklyn burst into tears. Dylan, please, this is the day before our wedding. I'm sorry. Please don't do this. He cried too. But nothing she said changed his mind. 10 heartbreaking minutes later, the call ended. Brooklyn remained frozen. The phone slipped from her hand onto the floor. Her mother found her minutes later. What happened? Brooklyn could barely speak. The wedding. She swallowed painfully. Is cancelled. The news spread with unbelievable speed. Family members arrived in confusion. Guests canceled flights. The church called repeatedly. Service providers demanded explanations. Nobody understood what had happened. Neither did Dylan. He shut himself inside his apartment, tormented by a decision he himself could not explain. Meanwhile, Isabella pretended to be devastated. She hugged Brooklyn. She cried beside her. She even prayed with her. Every tear looked convincing. No one suspected that the woman comforting the bride was the very one who had orchestrated her downfall. Brooklyn's heart shattered. The beautifully decorated church stood empty the next day. The wedding gown remained unworn. The reception hall was cancelled. The honeymoon tickets expired and used. For weeks she refused to leave her apartment. Food lost its taste. Sleep disappeared. Every dream she had built collapsed overnight. She kept asking the same question. God, why? There was no answer. Not yet. Sometimes heaven is silent because it is preparing a greater story than we can see. The months following the cancelled wedding were the darkest Brooklyn had ever known. At first, she believed time alone would heal her broken heart. It didn't. She threw herself into work, hoping long hours would silence the painful memories. She accepted every translation assignment that came her way. If a client needed her in Lagos, she went. If another required her in Port Harcourt or Abuja, she packed her bags without hesitation. The busier she became, the lonelier she felt. Everywhere she went, something reminded her of what she had lost. A bridal shop. A wedding convoy. A couple taking photographs. A church bell on Saturday afternoon. She smiled in public, but every smile cost her something. Her friends continued checking on her. Mia called almost every evening. "You'll smile again," she would encourage. "I don't know if I believe that anymore," Brooklyn replied quietly. Amelia and Chloe visited whenever they could, filling her apartment with laughter that disappeared the moment they left. Only Isabella seemed strangely uncomfortable around her. She still visited, still hugged her, still pretended to sympathize, but every conversation ended quickly. Looking into Brooklyn's eyes had become difficult. Because guilt had begun whispering where jealousy once shouted. Nearly 2 years passed. Life slowly moved on. Then one afternoon, Brooklyn received news that reopened an old wound. A mutual friend called. "Have you heard?" "Heard what?" "Dylan got married last weekend." Brooklyn closed her eyes. For several seconds she said nothing. "I see. It hurt me to tell you." "It's all right." But after the call ended, she cried harder than she had cried in months. That night she knelt beside her bed. She had never truly prayed before. Not from the depths of her soul. With tears running freely, she whispered. "God, if you are real. I cannot carry this pain anymore. Please help me." It was the simplest prayer she had ever prayed. And heaven heard it. Then she met Fairchild Aquabata Morgan. Brooklyn had first met Fairchild during her engagement to Dylan. A humble, born-again Christian, Fairchild was the founder and chairman of one of Africa's largest privately held logistics empires, with a fleet of cargo vessels, freight airlines, inland container depots, and strategic investments in energy and commercial real estate. He was also Dylan's friend and business partner. Over the years, Brooklyn had consulted for his company on several international projects, and their interactions had always been cordial and professional. A few weeks after her engagement to Dylan ended, Fairchild organized a special Valentine's outreach at his church. Rather than celebrating romance alone, the event focused on God's love, healing, and restoration. He invited several members of his staff, business associates, and close friends, including Brooklyn. Brooklyn almost declined. She wasn't interested in churches. But something deep inside urged her to attend. The auditorium was filled with couples, singles, families, and young professionals. The choir sang about God's unfailing love. Brooklyn listened quietly. Then the pastor began preaching from the story of Joseph. What people meant for evil, he declared, God can use for your good. Brooklyn felt as though the message was written specifically for her. The preacher spoke about disappointment. About betrayal. About dreams that seemed to die. Then he said, sometimes God removes what you are crying over because He is protecting you from what you cannot yet see. Brooklyn's tears flowed uncontrollably. When the altar call was made, she did not hesitate. She walked forward. There, with tears streaming down her face, she surrendered her life completely to Jesus Christ. For the first time since her cancelled wedding, peace entered her heart. Not because every question had been answered, but because she had finally met the one who held every answer. Brooklyn threw herself into knowing God. She attended Bible studies faithfully. She joined the church's discipleship class. She learned to pray. She learned to forgive. She learned that healing was a journey, not an event. Every morning she read the scriptures before going to work. Every evening she ended the day with thanksgiving instead of complaints. Slowly, the bitterness left her heart. She even prayed for Dylan. And though she did not know it, she also prayed for the friend who had betrayed her. About 8 months after giving her life to Christ, the church organized a 3-day prayer conference. On the final evening, the atmosphere was charged with worship. People prayed passionately. Some knelt. Others wept before the Lord. Then the pastor's wife, a woman known for her humility and spiritual sensitivity, suddenly became quiet. She looked across the congregation. Finally, she pointed toward Brooklyn. My sister in the blue dress. Brooklyn looked behind her. No, the woman said gently. You. Her heart began pounding. The pastor's wife spoke slowly. The Lord is showing me a wedding that never happened. Brooklyn froze. There was no unfaithfulness. There was no mistake on your part. Tears filled Brooklyn's eyes. The congregation became completely silent. Then the woman continued. It was spiritually manipulated. Brooklyn covered her mouth. The details became even more astonishing. The Lord says someone close to you became jealous. A friend. She traveled to seek dark powers. She paid a terrible price. Brooklyn trembled violently. The prophetess lowered her voice. For 7 days she drank the urine of the man she consulted. Gasps filled the auditorium. Brooklyn collapsed to her knees, sobbing. No one had known. No one except God. The pastor's wife walked over and gently lifted her. Then she smiled. But the Lord says this. What was delayed was not denied. What the enemy stole cannot compare to what I am about to restore. I will compensate you. Your latter joy shall be greater than your former expectations. The church erupted in praise. For the first time, Brooklyn understood that her pain had never escaped God's notice. She also made another important decision. She prayed carefully about each of her 4 friends, asking God to show her whom she could trust and whom she should love from a distance. The betrayal had changed her, but it had not made her bitter. It had made her wiser. She also learned another valuable lesson. Not every matter of the heart needed to be shared with friends. Some burdens belonged only between her and God. From then on, she became more discerning. She guarded the intimate details of her life, sharing them only with those the Lord had proven trustworthy. She still valued friendship. She still loved deeply. But she no longer confused closeness with trust. Experience had taught her that while faithful friends are a gift from God, Wisdom is knowing whom God has entrusted with the keys to your heart. Months later, an international corporation awarded Fairchild's company a major European logistics contract. The project required someone fluent in several European languages to coordinate negotiations across multiple countries. Without hesitation, Fairchild recommended Brooklyn. Together, they traveled to Italy. At first, he was careful. She had once been his friend's fiancée, and he had no intention of allowing familiarity to become impropriety. But spending time with Brooklyn changed everything. He found himself quietly drawn to her. She was beautiful without vanity. Intelligent without arrogance. Graceful without demanding attention. And she possessed a quiet peace that drew him in more than her beauty ever could. Above all, she loved Christ. Not with a shallow or performative faith, but with the settled conviction of a woman who genuinely walked with God. Long flights became long conversations. Business meetings became opportunities to know one another beyond contracts, presentations, and financial projections. Evening walks through the historic streets of Italy turned into discussions about faith, purpose, and God's faithfulness. Brooklyn soon discovered something she had never encountered in any man before. Fairchild naturally brought every conversation back to God. Whether they discussed business, leadership, success, failure, or the future, Christ remained at the center of his thinking. His faith was not reserved for Sundays. It shaped every decision he made. He was successful without being proud. Wealthy without being boastful. Gentle without being weak. Confident without being intimidating. Compassionate without being naive. The more Brooklyn observed him, the more she understood why so many people respected him. His greatest achievement was not the empire he had built. It was the godly character Christ had built within him. Within a few months, they had fallen in love. At first, Fairchild didn't know what to do with his feelings. So he prayed. The peace God gave him the courage to approach her. When they returned to Nigeria, he called Brooklyn and invited her to dinner. Brooklyn, on the other hand, surprised herself by falling in love with Fairchild. After Dylan's betrayal, she had convinced herself she would never love again. Yet somewhere along the way, God had quietly healed her heart. She accepted the invitation, fully aware of where the conversation was likely headed. The restaurant was luxurious, but they dined in a private room where they could speak freely. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Fairchild gently introduced the subject. "I know my friend and business partner hurt you," he began, his usual confidence replaced by nervousness. "But I can't keep pretending I don't have feelings for you. Please don't feel any pressure. I know you're still healing, and I respect that." It was touching to watch the man who was fearless in the boardroom become so careful with her heart. Brooklyn smiled. "I have feelings for you too." Relief spread across Fairchild's face. "Thank you for being so honest with me." He paused before asking, "Will you pray about us?" "I will," she replied with a smile. And so they did. They prayed separately. They sought counsel from their pastors. They waited patiently on God. Only after both of them had received peace in their hearts did they begin courting. Their relationship was built on prayer rather than emotion, on conviction rather than chemistry. When Fairchild finally proposed, it was a day filled with joy. Together, they thanked God for giving them another chance at love. Then he looked into Brooklyn's eyes and said, "I cannot promise you a perfect life." He took her hands in his. "But I promise to love you as Christ loves his church." With joyful tears streaming down her face, Brooklyn whispered, "Yes." In that moment, she remembered the words the pastor's wife had spoken years earlier. God's prophecy had come to pass. Fairchild was far more than Dylan could ever have been, not because of his wealth or success, but because he loved Christ and reflected his character. Their wedding was beautiful. Not because of the decorations. Not because of the magnificent venue, but because Christ stood at the very center of it. As Brooklyn walked down the aisle, she remembered the wedding that had been cancelled years before. This time, there was no bitterness. Only gratitude. God had truly restored what she thought she had lost. He had not merely replaced her broken dreams. He had given her something far better. All 4 of her friends attended the wedding, including Isabella. They came as guests, rejoicing with her on the day God had given her a new beginning. But this time, things were different. Unlike her first wedding preparations, Brooklyn did not involve them in the intimate details of planning the ceremony. There were no endless discussions about her relationship, no late-night strategy sessions, and no sharing of every private decision. None of her friends objected. They respected her decision. Isabella suspected Brooklyn knew what she did. This made her to lose her peace completely. After the wedding, Isabella's life slowly unraveled. It began with a strange odor. At first she didn't think much of it. She bathed more with scented soaps. She changed perfumes. Nothing improved. She bought even more expensive soaps. The smell remained. She visited specialists. Every test came back normal. Still, the odor became stronger. It resembled stale urine. Soon colleagues avoided sitting beside her. Passengers changed seats on buses. Relationships ended mysteriously. Marriage proposals disappeared. Employers quietly transferred her away from customer-facing duties. Her confidence crumbled. Finally, desperate and ashamed, she returned to the old spiritualist. She fell at his feet. "Please help me." The old man looked at her without sympathy. "You agreed to the price. I didn't know this would happen. You wanted another woman's tears." She cried. "I've suffered enough." The old man shook his head. "There is nothing more I can do." He turned away. As she left, his final words followed her. Darkness always collects its payment. Isabella was going to live the rest of her with the repercussions of drinking urine to hurt an innocent woman. Years later, Brooklyn occasionally remembered the day her first wedding was cancelled. She no longer cried. Instead, she thanked God. Had that wedding taken place, she might never have encountered Christ in the way she did. She might never have met Fairchild. She might never have discovered that God's plans are always higher than human understanding. One Sunday, after church, a young woman approached her. "I've been disappointed," she said. "I feel as if God has forgotten me." Brooklyn smiled warmly. Taking the young woman's hand, she said, "There were days I thought my life was over. But God was writing another chapter. The chapter one wanted ended. The chapter he wrote was far more beautiful." The young woman smiled through her tears. Brooklyn looked toward the sky and whispered silently, "Thank you, Lord." For she had learned a lesson she would never forget. Jealousy destroys the one who harbors it. But those who place their lives in God's hands can trust Him to bring beauty from ashes. For no power of darkness can permanently cancel the purpose of God. His timing may not always match ours. His methods may not always make sense. But His plans are always good. And when He restores more abundantly than we could ever imagine.